According to pretty much every leaker in the video game industry, the Nintendo Switch is about to drop a compilation of 3D Mario games, and depending on when you're watching this video, it might have already become a thing. But regardless of whether or not it's real, there's still plenty of people out there who think that simply upresing and porting older Mario games isn't enough, and that Nintendo should instead remake these games from the ground up so that they could be even better. But if you ask me, I think that remaking any 3D or even 2D Mario game would be a huge waste of time, especially if they were all done at once in a random compilation. Why is that, you ask? Well, sit back in your family's most mysterious chair, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the Ayatollah of rock and roll, Cameron all one word, to tell you why no Mario game should ever be remade for the Nintendo Switch, or really any time at all. Alright, so I know that remakes can be a whole heck of a mess of fun, and unlike movies and TV shows, they tend to top their originals more often than not with video games, which I suppose could just as easily be the case if Nintendo were to remake some of those dang Mario games. So trust me, I can't understand why some of you may have duped in the comments already for saying that I'm against it. Man, after all, what kind of a dingus would not want Nintendo to remake and improve some of the greatest video games of all time, right? Well, because even though I personally kind of like how many games are being ported over to the Switch, I can't exactly use the same defense for remakes, because ports and remasters only take about 5 minutes of copy and pasting to accomplish, and if you're one of those people who hates ports on the Switch for whatever reason, then just imagine how much more furious you'd be if Nintendo would spend months and possibly even years creating something that already exists. Like, as great as it'd be for Super Mario Sunshine to get remade from the ground up to be bigger, faster, stronger, and sexier than ever, I don't really think there's that many things that could be done to make it that much better without just making an entirely new game. And if Nintendo's gonna go through that much effort to make a game, then they might as well just make something completely original with Mario, and I guess you could say the same thing about pretty much any video game remake, but honestly, I'm not completely against the idea of using nostalgia to get people interested in a game by rehashing the same titles or stories while using a completely different game engine like we saw with the Resident Evil remakes. I mean, a lot of people loved Resident Evil 7 for its completely new game engine, but seeing as how the 6th game rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, the sales didn't exactly reflect how good Resident Evil 7 truly was, even if they were still pretty decent. So to get back into the good graces of their fans, Capcom had to lure them in with a little bit of nostalgia, because had Resident Evil 7 used the exact same game engines as the remakes for 2 and 3 did, then I can promise you that that game wouldn't have been nearly as successful. So basically, the remakes in this instance filled a void and reminded lapsed fans why they loved the series so much to begin with. Plus, even though I personally loved the original Resident Evil games with the tank controls, fixed camera angles, and horrendous voice acting, the average modern-day gamer would probably consider those to be unplayable, so for any new fans who might want to get caught up on the story, a remake kinda was necessary. And it's for this reason why I think remaking the 4th game would be a really stupid idea, because at best it'd be like 5 to 10% better, and at worst it wouldn't be as good, which would obviously render the efforts as a complete waste of time, and the same thing could be said for the Mario series. And I'm sure some of you are probably wondering about my stance on the Pokemon remakes that have been coming out in between all the new generations, and, well, even though the original Pokemon games aged better than Resident Evil, there really were a lot of frustrating things that needed to be improved upon, like the sleep mechanics and the fact that the Psychic-type Pokemon were overpowered as all hell. Plus, seeing as how Nintendo didn't plan ahead of time and allow people to transfer Pokemon from the first 2 generations up to Ruby and Sapphire and the Game Boy Advance, a lot of people felt like they wasted their time with the originals, so rather than just adding the first 151 Pokemon into the post-games of Ruby and Sapphire, Nintendo, Game Freak, and my neighbor Terry all decided to just remake the original games from the first generation, because not only would that fix a lot of the flaws, but this way, players could at least recreate some of the same sentiment towards their favorites and help them forget that the original Pokemon who helped raise them as children on the Game Boy were gonna die as soon as the batteries to their cartridges ran dry. It's for this reason why I also think it was a pretty good idea to remake Gold and Silver on the DS, especially considering the fact that those are currently the best games in the entire series. And even though remaking Ruby and Sapphire on the 3DS wasn't something that really had to be done, the precedent had already been set that the remakes of older games were supposed to come out in between each generation, which is why fans are restless over the remakes of Diamond and Pearl, which I personally don't really see the need for. But as far as the Mario platforming series is concerned, though, the only thing in the entire franchise that's aged poorly at all, in my opinion, is the camera in Super Mario 64, and even then, it's not even that bad to warrant an entire remake when they could just update it a little bit in an HD remaster. But even if you still think that Mario 64 is the one game in the entire franchise that really does need a remake, then Nintendo went ahead and did it anyway on the DS just in case. But even then, it was almost more of an enhanced port like the Super Mario Advance series rather than a remake from the ground up, albeit a heavily enhanced port. And for the record, I really hope Nintendo remasters the DS version with all the extra content rather than the 64 version. But regardless of whether or not you or Wikipedia classify Super Mario 64 DS as a remake or an enhanced port, I'd still argue that a full sequel would have been better. But even so, I'd imagine that making a new 3D Mario game from the ground up as a launch title for the original DS would probably have been way harder, so I don't really blame Nintendo for saying frigate and settling for Super Mario 64 1.5. But I will, however, blame them if they ever waste their time and remake another Mario game again from this point forward, because even though just about all of them them could always be improved in some way with new technology, they're all still just as much fun today as they were back then, thanks to how much effort Nintendo always puts into these games. And I'm pretty sure they're well aware of this too, seeing as how Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo didn't change anything aside from the graphics and sound. And I guess I wouldn't mind new graphics or updated character models like Ocarina of Time 3D did for Link, but like I said, anything beyond that, improved camera angles, or minor bonuses like boss attack modes or challenges would just be wasted effort that could be used to give us something entirely new. And even if some third party came along and insisted on doing all the work for Nintendo, I still wouldn't want to see it done, because not only would they not top the original games, but they also wouldn't even sell that much better than simple up-res ports that take like 7 minutes to make. So if you ask me, and if you clicked on this video, then you kinda did, then Nintendo should just use the effort that'd be spent on giving us something perfect that already exists, and instead use it to give us something new like Mario Odyssey 2, or dare I say Mario Galaxy 3. But anyway, what do you think? Should Nintendo ever remake any 3D Mario games? Should they remake any 2D Mario games, even though every 2D Mario game is pretty much a remake of the first one anyway? Or do you think that uprising and ports are all we'll ever need? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody at some point. But let me tell you, if there's 2 human beings who are good enough to never need remakes, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Noah Linger and the Vidya Bros. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.